All right, family. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School where we break down the most controversial topics, the most compelling debates, the most engaged issues in the world today. And we don't do it the way other people do it. There's no superficial analysis. There is no, uh, drive-by talking points. This is not a cable news show. It's not a podcast even. This is a global classroom. And tonight we're going to be covering a range of topics. I apologize for the delay and the tech difficulties, but we back up and running. We about to knock this thing out and have an important conversation, a series of important conversations that begin in a place that I find absolutely tragic, and that is the Georgia school shootings. New information has come up about the Georgia school shooting. In particular, we have some details about the father of the young man who shot up a Georgia high school. The father himself has been arrested. If you somehow missed the story yesterday, and some people did for a variety of reasons, but if you somehow missed the story yesterday, this young man right here who you're looking at, a 14-year-old named Colt Gray, was apparently flagged by the FBI last year after he was linked to multiple online threats to do what? To shoot up a school. The tips were forwarded to the local sheriff's department. The sheriff's department came by and interviewed this man, Colt Gray. They also interviewed his father. This is Colt Gray, forgive me. They also interviewed his father. He was 13 at the time, and the kid says, I didn't make any threats. I don't know what y'all talking about. His dad told authorities that he kept guns at home. The father did, hunting weapons. He said, but his son did not have unsupervised access to them. The sheriff's office did alert school officials, but they did that as a precaution because even though it's suspicious, even though there's a red flag, there's no probable cause for an arrest. You can't just arrest somebody for something just for making vague online threats. They weren't to a person, etc. Anyway, yesterday, tragically, that all changed. At Appalachia High School, Gray killed 4 people. I don't even like to give attention to the shooter. I don't like to say their name. I don't like to show their picture because of the attention and the copycat that it might garner. But it's also important to name the perpetrator for public safety. It's important to name the perpetrator so that we can keep an eye on the accountability mechanisms. It's important to name the perpetrator in this case so we can also know what their parents was doing. What we see in front of us now, of course, are the victims, the 4 people who were tragically cut down by this senseless school shooting. 2 of them were students, 2 of them were teachers. 9 other people also were hurt. Now, as of now, they're going to charge Gray as an adult for murder. I have thoughts on that. I'll get there. Police say he used an AR-style weapon in the attack. It's not clear how he got the gun. We do know that Georgia gun laws are among the easiest to access a gun. They are very, very lax. They are so committed to, obsessed with even preserving their Second Amendment rights with no limitations, that things like straw purchases are easier. People with mental health issues, it's easier to get them. You can walk into back in the day, a Kmart or a Target these days and just grab a gun in a lot of these places. I don't know Target per se. Let me be clear. I don't know if Target sells guns in Georgia, but I'm saying those types of stores, big box retailers, often have hunting rifles and things like that. There's no red flag laws in Georgia. And in 2022, Brian Kemp, Republican governor from Georgia, went even further and signed a law allowing residents to carry in public. You can carry a gun in public in Georgia without a license. You can carry a gun in Georgia without a background check. No background check, no license. Now, this is an American tragedy. It's a global tragedy. It's the mass shooting, not their school shooting, but the 30th mass shooting in 2024. We're 9 months in, we got 30 mass shootings. And I think the most ridiculous part of all of this is that there's nothing different that's going to happen. Some people say, oh, it's mental health. Some people say, oh, people are just bad. Oh, some people are just crazy. But what they won't say is let's change access to guns through public policy. Thoughts and prayers is all we keep getting. I mean, think about it. There was a Dollar General shooting in Jacksonville, Florida last year. There was a supermarket shooting in Buffalo, New York in 2022. The Day Spot shooting in Atlanta in 2021. The Pittsburgh Synagogue shooting in 2018. The Charleston shooting in 2015. It's a bunch of frustrated, mentally unstable, usually males, usually white males, frankly, who have almost unfettered access to high-powered weapons. Democrats and Republicans should be joining hands on this and saying, look, we don't agree on guns in every dimension of policy or culture or whatever, but we have to know that there's a way to get the guns out of people's hands. Simple common sense restrictions. I'm talking about saying, hey, maybe you should do background check. Maybe you should learn how to use a weapon before you access one. Maybe people with certain health issues or histories of violence shouldn't have such access to these weapons. This would be the logical thing to do. This would be the reasonable thing to do. But in this country, conceding any ground is seen as a political loss. So rather than impose reasonable restrictions, the gun lobby's like, no, we won't budge at all. We'll make it easier. We'll make guns where you can rub your fingerprints off. We'll make guns that can kill, shoot through concrete wall, whatever, right? They'll do whatever they can to stop this. And it's a problem. My heart goes out to these families. My heart goes out to everyone who was lost or scared or harmed and, God forbid, killed in this. But I'm going to say something, and some of you aren't going to like it. I'm going to make a banner for it. I know that a lot of you are devastated by the Georgia school shooting, the 30th mass school shooting of 2024. I know many of you are angry and hurt and scared and sad, crushed, devastated. I get all of it. And I know a lot of you want justice. So do I. But it's important that we not confuse justice with bloodlust. There are many people out there who are championing the government, the state's decision to try the young man who did the shooting, Colt Graves, 14 years old, as an adult. That's the thing that people are applauding right now. They're also applauding that the father was arrested and that he's being charged. But the idea of charging a 14-year-old as an adult is being cheered by too many of y'all, including some of y'all who identify as liberals, who identify as progressives. You can't have it both ways. Don't tell me you're liberal or progressive and you want to try a 14-year-old kid as an adult. Why would you say that, Mark? Well, you don't have a fully developed brain at 14. Shit, you don't have a fully developed brain at 16 or 18. At 14, if you're engaged in a mass school shooting, there are many factors to consider. But what I cannot consider is that you are a fully formed human being that made this decision on your own. If you're 14 years old and you're shooting up schools, who harmed you? What is your history? What is your story of trauma? Now, some of y'all gonna say, well, I know a whole lot of people who got histories and stories of trauma and harm, and they managed not to shoot up a school. I agree. I agree. So the question then becomes, how do we respond to it? Well, in the tradition I come out of, the abolitionist tradition, we respond to it by holding people accountable. But accountability doesn't mean a cage. Accountability doesn't mean the death penalty. And accountability doesn't mean treating a 14-year-old as if he were a 34-year-old. And even if you were 34 years old, I would have a conversation about what we do with him. But at 14 years old, there's no doubt that this is a child. You cannot take a child and give them an adult punishment. You cannot take a child and sit them in a cage for 20 and 30 years. The premise of trying someone as an adult is that somehow the crime is so grave that it warrants not giving you a childlike penalty. But the problem is they are a child. So they didn't make an adult decision. They didn't make an adult choice. They didn't have the capacity to make an adult choice. I want to know, what is it about this kid's life? The kid was online making threats. The kid was online talking about shooting up a school. There were cries for help. There were flags. The school knew. The sheriff's office was warned. The FBI was involved. The parents were involved. There's a whole village of people who were wildly irresponsible, who absolutely did not handle this young man with care. They all got blood on their hands, but only one person is going to jail for it. And only one person is potentially being tried as an adult who's a kid. And that is this young man, Colt Gray. I don't got no tears for Colt Gray. This isn't me caping for a white boy. This ain't me caping for a killer. This ain't me caping for a monster. I don't lose an ounce of sleep at night thinking about what might happen to this kid who just killed 4 people, 2 students, 2 teachers, and injured 9 others. But even though I'm angry at him, and even though I have no regard for him at the personal level, I still believe in justice. And I still believe in fairness. And I still believe that our system is only as good as those moments of weakness, as those moments of contradiction, as those moments of difficulty. It's easy to treat people well when there's nothing at stake. It's easy to make the tough decision when it's somebody you don't care about in terms of the victim, right? But when it's your people, or when the story's so tragic it makes you cry, what do you say about the shooter then? Now, I'm not saying that we should give him a pat on the head and send him home. It sounds like he needs mental health treatment. It sounds like he might need to be pulled out of society and given care and treatment and investment. It also sounds like he needs mechanisms of accountability. I'm not just saying give him a hug either. But what does accountability look like outside of a carceral logic? What does accountability look like when we try to actually fix the problem instead of taking a 16-year-old boy who's clearly been traumatized, clearly been harmed, probably been abused, probably been radicalized with racist ideologies, probably had all this stuff happen to him, and we're going to ignore all of that and just stick him in a cage for the rest of his life or kill him? How is that an answer? And here's the thing. Here's why I say that. I said the same thing about Dylan Roof, another monster who killed a bunch of people. If we allow the state to treat them this way, which is 1 in a million, what do you think they're going to do to your cousin? What do you think they're going to do to your brother? What do you think they're going to do to the vulnerable? You see, when you cheer on the death penalty or an adult sentence for a 14-year-old kid now, what do you think they're going to do to black boys and girls who they already think are grown? They don't even think black people can have or be children. They see us as short adults, not as children. They see us as people who are already grown. They don't give us the capacity to be innocent or to make mistakes or to be undeveloped. But the fact is, again, the undeveloped brain of a teenager is for everybody. So if you cheer on this 14-year-old boy being tried as an adult, just wait until something happens to somebody you care about. For every white boy they do this to, it's going to be 1,000 Negroes they do this to. And it won't be fair then, just as it's not fair now. So even if you don't care about white people, even if you don't care about this young man, even if you want vengeance against this young man, be practical and pragmatic and say it's going to come out of the flesh of us. We got to be mature, even in a moment of pain, especially in a moment of pain and tragedy. We got to be able to be mature ethically, mature morally, mature politically to make a different choice, y'all. Abolition ain't easy. It ain't all flowers and roses and hugs. Sometimes you got to make tough choices, but you also need to demonstrate a moral consistency about those choices. Anyway, y'all, we're going to take a quick break. I'll see you when we come back on the other side. I got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to be here for a second. Peace, family. Welcome back to Night School. There is a story that I saw today on them internets, and I gotta say, it made me laugh. It made me laugh. It just reminded me of the moment we're in. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'm riding solo tonight, so y'all gonna have to deal with me with these graphics. All right, y'all. White supremacists are jumping ship on Donald Trump. Today on Twitter, I bumped into a monologue given by Nick Fuentes. If you don't know Nick Fuentes is human garbage. Nick Fuentes is racist. Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic. He is homophobic. He is a Holocaust denier. He is, what else? He's a misogynist. He might be a neo-Nazi. Nick Fuentes is one of the worst people you could imagine. The reason a lot of people know his name, though, is in addition to moving in right-wing conservative circles, right-wing Republican circles, in addition to being the leader of some of the most disgusting movements in the world, he became popular because he went to dinner in November of 2022 with a man named Donald Trump. You know who else was there? Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. They had a private dinner. And Kanye West is who he is. Y'all know all the stuff about Ye that we supposed to know. I ain't gonna get into that. But the fact is, Fuentes, and it was at a moment where Kanye was saying even more vile things, right? Kanye wasn't just being a normal jerk that he is at times. He was being anti-Semitic. He was being misogynist more than normal. He was being all the things. And he's sitting there at dinner with Nick Fuentes. And who shows up there but Donald Trump? Was at the White House? Donald Trump. So Nick Fuentes, and it's crazy, by the way. It's crazy to be that damn racist with the last name Fuentes. But this young piece of shit goes into the world with a following. He got kicked off YouTube for being racist. That's how, you got real racist to get kicked off YouTube. But anyway, Fuentes shows up to his podcast and he makes a commentary about Donald Trump, who he's been riding for, who he's been advocating, who he's been defending, whose agenda he's been advancing. But here's what he said today.
It's just because it's bullshit. They sold out. They sold out. Everything that MAGA represented at one point and everything that it was is no longer. It's just really sad. And the 2020 comment, it's like, wow, that's how pathetic it's gotten. He's admitting, he says, oh, I lost by a whisker. So what was the point? Like, what's the point of any of it? You lost in 2020? Seriously? I mean, what are we even doing anymore? Then you're a loser. Then you're a loser. You just lost. Then you lost to Joe Biden. You deserve to be charged. If he admits that he lost, then that actually vindicates the DOJ charge against him. Because the charge is that he knew he lost, but he lied to defraud the people. That's the DOJ's charge. So why did we do Stop the Steal? Why did anyone go to January 6th? Why is anyone sitting in jail? Why did anything bad happen to anybody? Why did everyone get censored? Why is everything bad that has happened to the people that are involved, why did that need to happen?
Okay. So this is where there's so many things to say about this. First of all, so Nick Fuentes' argument, if you didn't follow, is Donald Trump just said that he lost by a hair. Donald Trump admits he lost the election. If Donald Trump lost the election, then we have completely wasted our time the last 4 years defending Donald Trump. Why did we raid the Capitol? Why did we say that the election was stolen? Turns out Donald Trump knows it wasn't stolen. He just friggin' lost. So either Nick Fuentes is a complete idiot and really believed everything Donald Trump said, which is possible. There's a lot of idiots out there that believe that Donald Trump really lost the election, really was robbed in the election, that Donald Trump should have won, yada, 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 yada. But Nick Fuentes is too smart to be that dumb. He's racist, he's vile, but he ain't dumb. That's how he has his following of racist idiots behind him. Nick Fuentes knows Donald Trump was full of shit the whole time. Nick Fuentes was willing to go along for the ride because he wanted Trump to be president. He was willing to go along for the ride because he wanted to be one of those people that had a plausible reason for staging an insurrection at the Capitol. He wants to create racist movements. He wants a neo-Nazi group to form. He wants the most despicable and vile anti-Semitic, anti-Black, misogynist, homophobic people to lead the world. And so he's willing to say and do whatever it takes. And he knows that the world that he wants to see is easier to create with Trump than without him. But I'll tell you what's happening. Nick Fuentes knows that Trump's losing steam. He knows that Trump is starting to sound ridiculous and incoherent and ridiculous. He knows that Donald Trump is really in a position to lose this election to Kamala Harris. And so he's looking for the next thing. He's looking for the next right-wing movement. He's looking for the next useful idiot for white supremacists now that Donald Trump is fading. He's trying to move on to the next thing, but you can't move on to the next thing and abandon Trump without a good excuse. So now he's not only abandoning Trump, but he and other white supremacists are trying to craft a narrative to be able to destroy Donald Trump. They prop you up and then they destroy you. So he can't just say, oh, well, Donald Trump lost, so he's a loser. So what does he say? Donald Trump tricked us. We thought he really lost the election. Because if you don't take that narrative of I didn't know, then you have to explain why the Capitol was invaded. You have to explain all these things. So he's explaining it for us. Now, oh, well, maybe the DOJ has a point. Maybe Trump should be in jail. Maybe Trump should be investigated. Maybe Trump is a liar. Maybe Trump is a loser. What Nick Fuentes is doing, as all pond scummers does, is set themselves up for the next thing. And he's setting himself up for the next thing so that he has plausible deniability and so that the movement that stands with Nick Fuentes can also move on to the next thing. This isn't about Nick Fuentes. I wouldn't spend as much time on him. I'm telling you that this is an indicator that the right, the extreme white supremacist right is looking for something new. They're looking for a new movement to latch onto. They're looking for a new figurehead. So keep your eyes open and pay attention to what's going on in the world, y'all, because it's a very good chance that very soon you're going to see a transition from Trump to something else. I don't know what that next thing is, but we're going to find out. All right, y'all, we'll take a quick break, come back. I got a lot more to talk to y'all about. I got a story with Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley. That's interesting. I also got Richie Torres, who tried to come for my neck today on X, but I'm going to have the last word. Stay with me, y'all. Be right back. All right, family, welcome back to Night School. New information's coming up about the role of Russia in our elections, the United States elections. The Department of Justice alleges that 2 employees of RT, the Kremlin's media arm, funneled millions of dollars into US-based Tenet Media. I don't know if y'all know Tenet Media, but it's a thing. And this has been an allegation that has happened, has occurred many times, been levied many times. And the allegation, again, is that Tenet Media is kind of being used as a staging ground for all kinds of propaganda activity. These 3 right-wing influencers are hired. They all have millions of subscribers on YouTube, other social media platforms. And they were told that the project was being bankrolled by a man named Edward Gregorian. Here's the thing. There is nobody named Edward Gregorian. That man does not exist. And according to the indictment, Tenet's founder offered one of the influencers $2 million a year to make videos for the company. Now, the social media star expressed some skepticism, all of them, about who is paying the bills, who's footing the bill for this. Who is this Edward Gregorian? They wanted to know. Of course, again, he doesn't exist. Eventually, the social media star agreed on a contract of $400,000 monthly fee to create 4 weekly videos. They also got a $100,000 signing bonus. The goal of the operation, according to prosecutors, was to fuel pro-Russian narratives, in part by pushing content and news articles favoring Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and others who the Kremlin deemed to be friendlier to its interests, right? So we don't know all the details of who the person is or what the person is. But what we do know for certain is that this allegation is complicated. On the one hand, I don't want to engage in the kind of red baiting and the kind of US centric nationalism that makes Russia the boogeyman and the US the hero and the victim. What I'm more interested in is thinking about the way that influencers are shaping our national dialogue and our political discourse in particular. Whether it's pro-Russia stuff, whether it's anti or pro-Trump stuff, anti or pro-Kamala stuff, I'm fascinated by the relationship between the power structure and the influencer on the social media landscape. Social media influencers, more than I have ever seen in my life, are being paid to advance a narrative. I can't tell you how many people are doing the pro-Trump for Black men narrative, who are just bots or paid influencers or algorithm, artificial intelligence mechanisms. I can't tell you how many people are advancing a "don't vote Black people" narrative. I see it. There are people whose job it is to figure out these algorithms. And when they do, what they realize is that the influencer, the person with the million viewers or subscribers or whatever, has the ability to shape public consciousness. And if you can shape public consciousness, you can do whatever you want. So we should pay attention to the RT story. We should pay attention to the fact that there are people out there who've been paid a lot of money to do this. By the way, people get 6 figures a month to make 4 videos. Nigga, where? And why you ain't called me? Anyway, joking, but exactly, fam. Exactly. But the bigger picture here, the bigger point, y'all, is influencers are just that. Let's not see them as political leaders. Let's not see them as educators. Let's see them as people who operate in this space. Some have value as educators, some don't. Some have knowledge, some don't. But whatever the idea is, we have to make sure. We have to be absolutely certain. Absolutely certain. that we are forming a political consciousness, that we are forming intellectual communities that are shaped by our own political interests and not the interests of the powerful, which are then articulated to us through Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, etc., by these influencers who will have you thinking it's one thing when it's actually the other thing. I was about to quote my man Marlo Stanfield, right? You want it to be one way, but it's the other way. Anyway, y'all, more comments, more thoughts. I'm not going to take another break. I want to get right to it because there's so much going on in the world that I think we should be caring about. And then there's stuff that I don't care as much about, but I still think it's important. One of those things is this. Candace Owens. Y'all know Candace Owens. She is a right-wing pundit commentator who over the last 5 years has become wildly popular among lots of people in lots of communities, mostly white, conservative, Christian nationalists, etc. A few months ago now, it's been a little longer, Candace Owens has become a more complex figure. She left the Daily Wire. She fell out with Ben Shapiro, another right-wing commentator, over the issue of Israel. Candace Owens had the audacity to challenge the Israeli settler state, to call into question the genocide in Gaza, to actually say that every criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic. And so she has been fired from right-wing media jobs. She has her own platform where she's doing well, but she has very excellently, she's kicking my ass, but she is still being attacked by the right. She's also being attacked by particular prominent Zionist figures who are trying to frame her as an anti-Semite, as a monster, as an advocate of violence. They're doing all the things. Well, she and Rabbi Shmuley have been going back and forth for a very long time. I mean, a long time. And if you don't know Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach is a very well-known rabbi who I would argue is an extremist. He is a Islamophobe, certainly an anti-Palestinian voice. He is unreasonable. He supports the genocide in Gaza. He supports the occupation of Palestine. He, to me, is wholly unreasonable. And in every venue where I've seen him speak, he likes to engage in ad hominems. I saw him do it with Norman Finkelstein. I watched him do every debate he's in. He talks about the person and he doesn't talk about the issues. They went on Piers Morgan last night for a showdown, Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley, and it was one for the ages. I'm not telling you to watch it. You probably, and I've had some conversations with y'all. It ain't y'all jam. It ain't y'all type of hype, as we used to say. But I last night sat up for an hour. I should have been watching Grey's Anatomy, but I watched an hour of this, the full hour debate. And some interesting moments came out where I got to say, Candace Owens was owning Shmuley. I'm going to show you one.
Prior to October 7th, I don't think many people were engaged with what is happening in Israel. You know, we kind of all said the same thing. Israel is our friend and ally. I count myself among those people. Post October 7th, the world, and especially I would say Zionists in media, were demanding that we all pay attention. And when we began to pay attention, we didn't like what we saw. You cannot tell me to ever feel comfortable with 18,000 children being ruthlessly murdered. You can't get me to feel comfortable as a Christian with the amount of more explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. This doesn't make sense to me. Gaza is 30 miles long, 7 miles wide. It's incredibly dense population. And this is, by the way, according to Haaretz, that 40,000 Palestinians have been murdered. I believe they're getting those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil. And what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Barks. 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 She went in. I'm going to say a couple things about that. Again, sometimes, blessings come in the packages you don't expect. Sometimes interesting arguments, powerful arguments come from people who you don't normally rock with. When you see a debate between Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley, I know if you like me, you like, oh, couldn't happen the two worst debaters. You know what I mean? In the sense that, Candace and I don't agree on 99% of the world, right? So it's hard to root for her. Rabbi Shmuley is human garbage on so many issues. I've watched him be just awful on. I'm not saying he's human garbage in general. I'm saying he's human garbage on several key issues. And so I'm damn sure not rooting for him on this issue. And so I didn't know what to expect in the debate. But Candace Owens dog walked Rabbi Shmuley through the entire debate. It got so bad, she was hitting him with points. And then Shmuley one time said, well, where's your evidence? Where's your source? Now, we're on national TV. I'm giving you a data point and you're asking for my source. So she looks down and says, well, let me find it. Pulls it up and proves that what she said was right. It was about the amount of weaponry and the amount of explosives, I believe, that Israel was using and throughout various moments in history compared to the way they're using it right now in Gaza. He said, what's your source? She pulls up the source and he says, you cheated. You used the computer. And Piers is like, but she was right. He's like, yeah, but we haven't fact checked it yet. She was like, well, here's the source. He's like, then after the debate, he makes like a TikTok or Instagram video, whatever. It says, Candace Owens brought a computer to a debate. She He didn't argue that her point was wrong. He didn't say that her fact was inaccurate. He said she only knew the fact after she looked it up. What kind of dumbass argument is that? Yeah, you might have been right, but you didn't know off the top of your head. This ain't a pop quiz. It's a debate, ultimately looking for truth. So she's quoting scripture. He's quoting scripture to Candace Owens, and that's when Candace bounced back with that, woe to he. Ooh, that's the same scripture that Prop Joe used in The Wire. Ooh, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter, if you add the last part to it. That's Isaiah 5:20. He put that on him and said, look, she said, don't act like what you're doing is principled. Don't act like what you're doing is good. You're one of those people that act like you're doing good, but actually doing evil. And you're one of those people that takes evil and acts like it's good. She's talking about the genocide. She talked about the density of Gaza. She talked about the bombs, the children, and she appealed to her Christian faith, which more Christians should do. More Muslims should do, more Jews should do, more everybody should do this, right? And say, what are the best values of my tradition? The best values of my tradition, the best values of my faith say that I can't support a genocide. I can't support the killing of children. I can't support innocent people being harmed. Then she pulled out the other one. Now this is a tougher one. She pulled out the synagogue of Satan from Revelations. If y'all don't know Revelations, open your books, church family, to the book of Revelation. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. I don't love that scripture because of the various ways that it has been used. Too often that scripture has been used to demonize Jewish people. Too often that scripture has been used to deny the legitimacy, the authenticity of particular strands, particular communities of Jews, right? That you all aren't the real Jews, you're just Jewish. These kind of anti-Semitic narratives that emerge. And so too often that Revelations quote is used, I think, in ways that do harm to my Jewish brothers and sisters. So I don't like to see that used. That's not what Candace was doing right there. Candace was doing the thing that I think makes more sense, right? Which is she's saying, don't take this project of political Zionism. Don't take this settler colonial monstrosity. Don't take the statecraft of Israel, the genocidal actions of Gaza in Gaza, and put that on Judaism. Judaism is beautiful. Judaism is a rich tradition. Judaism values and prioritizes love and mercy and justice, welcoming the stranger. Judaism is not the problem. Jews are not the problem. He's saying that some of y'all, I'm sorry, Candace is saying some of y'all are doing something problematic and conflating it with this beautiful faith tradition, this beautiful cultural tradition, this beautiful legacy. Don't take what Israel's doing. Don't take Netanyahu and his actions and say that that's just being Jewish. No, that's anti-Semitic because you're tying Judaism to all these awful things that Netanyahu is doing. Now, I would never say that Rabbi Shmuley is not a real Jew or that he's not Jewish. He is Jewish. He is a real Jew. I don't get into that. I think that's problematic. I'm not saying she's doing that. I'm saying I don't like to even approach that territory because it invariably becomes anti-Semitic. It invariably becomes a question of their Jewishness or of the legitimacy of their claims in ways that I don't feel comfortable with, that I don't think are ethical, moral, or principled. So for that reason, again, I stay away from that scripture. I stay away from scripture in general in these kinds of engagements, but I don't rock with it. It makes me uneasy. But I see what Candace Owens was doing. I see where she was going with it. She's saying what's happening in Gaza is awful. Stop saying that it's not. Stop defending foolishness. Stop defending evil. And stop trying to say that whenever I disagree with you, that it's anti-Semitism. Because Shmuley even accused her of a blood libel in that debate for quoting a statistic that turned out to be right. So Candace Owens legitimately schooled Rabbi Shmuley, not just through scripture and not just in scripture, but by waging a powerful rejoinder to this idea that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. She's fearless in that way. She does not care what people say. That's part of that is she's self-made. She owns her own company. She got all this stuff. And when I say self-made, self-made is the wrong word. She owns her own stuff. That's what I'll say. And so there's a lesson to be learned here from Candace Owens. Now, again, that doesn't erase the harm Candace Owens has done. That doesn't erase the deeply problematic and harmful ideologies that she advances that undermine the dignity and the humanity and the legitimacy of Black people's work and lives and actions and aspirations and et cetera, and liberation struggles. I'm not saying Candace Owens is our hero. I'm not saying Candace Owens is our friend. I'm not saying Candace Owens is our ally, but Candace Owens absolutely deserves to be protected from unfair allegations of anti-Semitism, unfair allegations of Jew hate, for two reasons. One, because of three reasons. One, it's just the right thing to do. Two, too many of us will be accused of the same thing, and so we need to hold a line of moral consistency here. Let me say one more thing, actually, before I even get to the other thing. We also have to be careful because while I agree with Candace Owens and her critique of Israel and her challenge to Rabbi Shmuley, there have been moments where she's veered into territories that I think are deeply dangerous. You know, the whole Hitler globalism, nationalism thing. She didn't say what people say she said, but what she actually did say, I still think is problematic. Saying that, you know, Hitler's domestic policy was the problem. It's when he went international or global. If his nationalist project were restricted simply to Germany, she says he would have been fine. I'm saying no, because Hitler's domestic practices, his just intra-Germany practices, were violent. They were genocidal. They were anti-Semitic. They were evil. So there's just no way you can defend Hitler in any way, form, or fashion. And so I can't rock with that. People have accused her of Holocaust denial. On Piers Morgan, she says she's never done that. She says she's never denied the Holocaust or the pain or the harm caused to the Jewish people. Other people say she still is. I need to see the evidence that she's denied the Holocaust, because she keeps saying the opposite in every interview I see. She keeps affirming the trauma, the pain, and the legitimacy of the justice claims that Jewish people have made in response to the Nazi Holocaust, because it was real, because it was evil, because of that. All I'm saying, actually, let me wrap it up in a very clear way. Candace Owens says a lot of wrong things. Candace Owens, to me, in my opinion, does a lot of things that I think are deeply harmful to us. And so I know we should not be following her, but there are moments where our interests intersect, and that is when we're fighting for justice, or at least speaking out against an injustice. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We can share her perspective on this, but don't get too comfortable. We're welcoming people. Don't start welcoming people back to the cookout, giving them plates and invitations and plus ones, and then you find out at the end of the day that they don't actually rock with you, and that their agenda is still anti-Black. Their agenda is still problematic. It's just, keep that in mind as well. That's all. But all that said, she whooped that ass. Sorry, Rabbi. You're welcome to come on Night School and have a debate, conversation, discourse with me too. We've been talking about doing it. I'm happy to do it. But no ad hominems, man. Every time Candace Owens made a point, or every time Piers Morgan asked a question, all he did was go back to personal. Watch those people that can't have a real conversational debate without getting personal. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, y'all. Break time. I'll see y'all in a second. All right, family, welcome back to Night School. Shout out to everybody here. Hit the like button if you like what you've been listening to. Hit that subscribe button too, yo. How can we build on this channel? Well, you subscribe to it, but you also give us commentary. Let us know what we're doing right. Let me know what we're doing wrong. Keep the commentaries coming, but hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're here for the first time. Or, actually, whenever you hear, hit present. Go in them comments, go to the comment well right now and type present, and let me know what city, what state you're coming in from, what country you're writing from. This is a global classroom. We want to know where everybody is from. We want to know where people are coming around from, where people are coming around from, excuse me. We got just a couple more stories I want to get to, but I want to shout out Meg A62, who dropped in a super sticker. We appreciate you. Feel free to send the memberships in. Feel free to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the join button, the super chat. If you got super chat questions or comments, drop them things in. I give you my word, I will read them. We're building a channel, y'all, so we'll take all the support that we can get. I want to talk about Kim Kardashian for a moment. That's right. I want to talk about Kim Kardashian for a moment. And you might say, why does he want to talk about Kim Kardashian? What does the Kardashian have to do with night school? Well, look, y'all can talk all that trash y'all want about Kim Kardashian, and there's plenty of trash to be spoken, but she's really had a recovery. I mean, there was a moment where people were like, yo, Kanye, stay away. She's going to bring you down. And now people are like, she might be the one we like, and he might be the one we don't rock with. I'm not saying that because I don't dispose of Black people, and I got a lot of critiques of the Kardashians. But I am grateful for the work that Kim Kardashian has been doing in recent years. She posted this just yesterday. And I wanted you all, well, she posted it last week, excuse me, saying, yesterday I had the amazing opportunity to spend some time with the guys at Pine Grove Youth Fire Camp in Grauersburg Fire Camp 3 and 5. These incredible men are incarcerated firefighters saving our state, home, and communities from fire. The program is the first of its kind, allowing 18 to 25-year-old incarcerated people to get out of prisons and into a fire camp to serve the community. Through this voluntary program, they can fully expunge their records when they are released and now can go into firefighting careers when they get out. So this is important for many reasons. One, it's just great to see Kim Kardashian really growing into her own as she's pursuing her legal career, studying for the bar, studying to become an attorney in California. As she's doing that, she's become part of major prison reform movements. Now, again, I'm not for reform. I'm an abolitionist, but I do believe that reformist reforms, as Ruth Wilson Gilmore talks about, are key to getting us the abolitionist world that we want and the abolitionist world that we desire. I love to see celebrities standing with incarcerated people. Too often, respectability politics and image consciousness makes people not stand near the incarcerated, but Kim is doing the opposite. She is outside and she is with the people who need the most support. The other thing is, if you look at the language of her piece, you notice she talks about incarcerated people, incarcerated firefighters, incarcerated people, not felons, not criminals, not inmates. The language of possibility is embedded in the word choices we make when we call people incarcerated people rather than ex-cons, or formerly incarcerated people rather than ex-cons. And we talk to people about being incarcerated people rather than, convicts or prisoners. Although prisoners are a complicated thing, we have space to imagine people beyond the kind of objectifying and dehumanizing language of the carceral state. So the fact that Kim is mindful and conscious of that and intentionally using language that humanizes those who are incarcerated, for me, is vital and necessary. And the most fundamental thing, though, because I don't want to get into just the abstraction of this, is that this program is allowing people to learn how to become firefighters and to have their records expunged. The reason why this is so important is because about a decade, maybe even 2 decades ago, there were the California wildfires, which were just blazing in California, and they needed to protect white people's property. That's what the state is about, right? Protecting the property of the rich and white people sometimes. And they usually intersect. And so they have incarcerated people putting out fires. But those people were getting out of prison and still couldn't get a job because they weren't getting expungements. Can you imagine telling someone who makes 25 cents an hour to go out and fight a burning fire in California? It's inhumane and unjust under the wrong circumstances, and this would be the wrong circumstance. You got these guys putting out fires, and you put them back in a cage and tell them, yeah, if you do your 10-year sentence, we made you put out all these fires. You probably put out more fires than an actual fireman would in 10 years. Then come to find out, you can't be a fireman because you're a formerly incarcerated person. You got to check the felon box. That is wrong. So here's an opportunity to learn a skill, an opportunity to get out of the cages, and an opportunity to be prepared for the world when you get out. That's a dope program. Now, again, I have thoughts as an abolitionist about what this could look like and how to do it differently, but we can always do something better, but we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So shout out to Kim Kardashian for the work she's doing and for really thinking deeply and carefully about the incarcerated community. I love it. I respect it. I appreciate you. Thank you. All right, family, one last break, and then I'm going to talk to Richie Torres just for a minute. All right, family, welcome back to Night School. You know, there are people out there that think that what we do here on Night School doesn't matter. There are people out there that think that we don't make any numbers, we don't make any news, we don't make any traction. But when I've looked at multiple news programs, when I've looked at multiple headlines, when I've looked at multiple news cycle, Night School be there. We are a new program done by the power of the people. And yet, despite that, we get a whole lot of support, a whole lot of love, a whole lot of great guests, and a whole lot of eyeballs. But now I want to talk a little bit about those eyeballs. We talk a little bit about those eyeballs that are watching the show. Richie Torres made a post about yours truly, Marc Lamont Hill. I was minding my own business in these Twitter streets or these X streets, whatever, and I started to see several comments directed toward me, tagging me and Richie Torres. As you know, Richie Torres is the congressman out of New York who is also super pro-Israel, staunch liberal Zionist, the whole nine. And I was like, what they mad at me for? And then I saw the context. Richie Torres is unhappy with me. Richie Torres is unhappy with me because of a commentary I made about him a couple weeks ago. Apparently, he watches Night School and he had thoughts and feelings. Here's what I said that got Richie Torres so damn mad.
And Richie Torres writes this bizarre treatise that is filled with just a bunch of foolishness, which I'll talk about because, yeah, he identifies as a liberal Zionist. At least you're being honest about that. But making it seem as if Israel is this innocent nation state surrounded by Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis is ridiculous. Saying that you want Palestinians to be free and self-determined, but you want them to live in a demilitarized state. In other words, you want them to live under the weapon, under the literal gun of the Israeli military. You are talking about occupation, my friend, except we're not really friends. You keep talking about the Free Palestine movement as if it's bound up in violence, as if an oppressed and occupied people don't have a right to resist. I'm not going to adopt a respectability politics that says that somehow we can only support Palestinians if they say they're nonviolent. Sometimes you got to be violent. When you're fighting an oppressive, violent state, you absolutely have to be violent. Hugs and flowers don't get you free from an apartheid ethno state. Just saying.
So that was what I said. And then your boy Richie Torres had feelings about what I said. Here's what Richie Torres wrote after seeing that video, and he posted that on his own X account. Then Richie Torres said the following. Marc Lamont Hill went into a tirade against me for calling for a nonviolent, demilitarized Palestinian state. I first of all, the framing of things becomes instantly problematic, right? I'm going to show y'all something, what a tirade is. A tirade is a speech usually consisting of a long string of violent, emotionally charged words. I didn't use a string of violent, emotionally charged words, Richie Torres. But you're trying to frame me as angry and irrational, Richie Torres. But I didn't do that, Richie Torres. He said, for calling for a nonviolent, demilitarized Palestinian state. See, the problem is when you operate from the perspective of liberal Zionism and Western imperialism and racist Orientalism, that sentence right there seems like it makes a lot of sense and that it's harmless. All I asked for was a nonviolent, demilitarized Palestinian state. Yes, Richie, you did ask for that. And here's why it's a problem, Richie Torres. It's a problem, sir. Because nonviolence is an unreasonable ask against an oppressive force that is persistently and unyieldingly violent. That's the problem. You say you believe in a two-state solution. You say you believe in Israeli self-determination and freedom. What independent country or what independent state doesn't have any military? Is completely nonviolent. What state is not? If anything, as Max Weber talked about, the great sociologist, states fight for the monopoly of violence. We the only people that should be shooting people, not the everyday citizen, not the kid, certainly not the old man. We shouldn't be we shouldn't be shooting burglars when they come in our house unless we have to. Right? There's a way that the state should have the monopoly on violence. That's the argument, even from Western imperialist standards. But you're saying Palestinians, if you get a state, nonviolent, demilitarized. How dare you? That would make sense if Israel weren't operating as an oppressive force against Palestinians, which brings me to the next piece. Again, more misrepresentation. He, Marc Lamont Hill, accuses me of lying about Israel being supported by the likes, surrounded, by the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah. No, that's not what I said. But again, if you take a slice of what I said and lightly dip it in truth, and then the rest of it is lie all through the middle, then yeah, what you just said would make sense. I didn't say Israel's not surrounded by Hamas and Hezbollah. If you mean geographically that Hezbollah's here and Hamas is there, maybe Houthis are over here, that might be geographically accurate. Fine. That wasn't what I said, though. I said you act like Israel is this innocent nation state surrounded by Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. My point is not that Hamas and Hezbollah and the Ansar Allah, the Houthis, aren't there. My point is we need to ask why. Israel is not innocent. Israel has no claims to innocence. Israel cannot say that we're just here minding our own business and these gruesome Arab nations keep closing in. That is a lie. It's a good fundraising tool. It's a good way to keep Netanyahu in power, but it isn't true. Then he says, never mind the mass murder of 1,200 Israelis by the former or the displacement of 100,000 Israelis and the firing of 7,000 rockets by the latter. Again, I didn't say that. I've said repeatedly that I don't believe in the killing of civilians or the killing or kidnapping of civilians. That's my position. I've said that consistently. But Richie Torres isn't here to communicate the truth. He's here to make me look bad. By smearing your opponent, you can then say and do whatever you want, right? He says, Marc Lamont Hill insists Palestinians absolutely have a right to be violent. Yes, it's called self-defense. You can flower it up all you want, but yes, Palestinians have a right to self-defense. And not just against direct military invasions. Also, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem in effectively is a form of violence. And occupied people have a right to resist. But what Israel does not have a right to do is defend itself in places where it is engaged in a military occupation. So, no, I don't deny or denounce the notion that Palestinians have a right to be violent. Not unrestricted or unlimited violence, not indiscriminate violence, not disproportionate violence. Israel does all that. But you have a right to self-defense. And again, not just somebody has a gun to your head, but also to live under military conditions, to live in the Gaza Strip, to live in Ramallah, to live in El Bida, to live in Tulkarm, to live any of these places, Jenin, especially Jenin right now, is to be an extraordinary risk. And you absolutely have a right to defend yourself against that. Does the right to violence extend to the execution of 6 hostages by Hamas? Does it include the abduction of an infant? Of course not, in both cases. But he frames it as this rhetorical question that I can't answer, so that the person reading him generously or in good faith will assume that I'm saying that Palestinians have a right to execute hostages and steal babies. And of course they don't. No one does. But we also have to remember that the Israeli military is accused credibly of lots of crimes against humanity, lots of war crimes, lots of violations of international law, etc. So if you're really that outraged, Richie Torres, you could also look at Israel, and you got a whole lot of investment in one thing, but maybe you shouldn't. And then he says the Western anti
writes this bizarre treatise
What
that is filled.
scared the shit out of me. I was like, who voice is that? He said, I dismiss any rejection of violence as respectability politics. That's not true. At no point did I say that any rejection of violence is respectability politics. I reject Israeli violence. I reject the violence of the genocide. I reject the violence of the Israeli occupation. I reject the violence of the siege of Gaza. I reject the violence that the Israeli military engages all around the region. I reject all of it. I'm not doing respectability politics. That's principle. And I don't romanticize or sanction all forms of resistance. I don't sanction or romanticize all Palestinian action. We have a right to be critical of violence. We have a right to ask questions about why we're using violence, how we're using violence, and what are the limits of those uses. We absolutely have a right to do that. But what I'm not going to do, and this is what I said, Richie Torres, is that I'm not going to hold Palestinians to some ridiculous standard of respectability politics that says that we can only honor a Palestinian if they were going to be the next Martin Luther King. What they always say, right? Who's the next Palestinian Martin Luther King? Where's the first Palestinian Martin Luther King? Y'all killed him. And when I say y'all, I mean the powerful around the world. The Ugandan Martin Luther King, the Venezuelan, Cuban, United Statesian Martin Luther King, all those places, the Lebanese Martin Luther King, the Syrian Martin Luther King. Every country wants a Martin Luther King to emerge. Every state wants a Martin Luther King to emerge, partially because they're not going to fundamentally disrupt the status quo of the state in terms of its right to violence. The state can remain violent when you got a Martin Luther King who's willing to use nonviolent methods. That's what these powerful countries always say they want. You're allowed to have Martin Luther King, yeah, I bet. But that just means, that's not disrespect Martin Luther King. It means y'all don't actually understand Martin King's legacy either. But I'm not reducing it all to respectability politics. I'm saying that sometimes you got to do something different. Anyway, Richie Torres, listen to me, Richie Torres. I don't believe that you believe all of this. I think that you are passionate about this issue. I think that you are not sufficiently informed on this issue. And I don't say that with any condescension or anything like that. Some of the points you make, it seem to be missing serious gaps in historical analysis. Even if I agreed with you, I would say that. The fact that I don't makes it easier. You are actively trying to smear me, Richie Torres. You're actively trying to smear Mehdi Hassan. You're actively trying to smear other prominent voices so that there'll be nobody pushing back against your ridiculousness. But I'm not leaving. I'm not backing down. I'm not going anywhere, Richie Torres. I'd love to have a debate with you. I'd love to have a conversation with you. It can be public. It can be private. But what you're doing right now, the smear campaigns, the misrepresentations, the slippery logic, I can't tell how much of it is you not being strong on this issue and how much of this is innate natural ability or inability and how much of this is you being cunning and careful. I don't know. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you are just wrong and not manipulative, dishonest, or cynical. But your political record suggests that you are cynical. It suggests that you understand that you can take on this issue and be the Black liberal Zionist right now, the brown liberal Zionist right now, and get support, get funding, get all the things that comes from supporting right-wing interests, even from the left. Richie Torres, I don't know what made you put them bars out against me. I don't know what made you write that tweet about me, but it feels like at a moment where people are coming together on certain issues, at a moment where the radical left is getting voices, the progressives are getting. The point is, you're trying to smear people who matter to these conversations so that we don't have to reckon with the arguments. Well, it ain't gonna work these parts. Mehdi Hassan going to make you hear that argument. Noor Anakat is going to make you hear that argument. Norman Finkelstein is going to make you hear that argument. And I pray that I'll be able to make you hear my argument. But please stop with the BS, Richie Torres. You know what you're doing. And you wound up all those voices, all those people. You misrepresented to all those people, getting them outraged for no good reason. Now you got to deal with that. Or you should have to deal with that, Richie Torres. Anyway, enough about Richie Torres. Yo, shout out to y'all for watching the show tonight. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate Kenley George for gifting 5 memberships. Sweep them things up. I appreciate you, Isaac Francis. Thank you for the generous donation. I appreciate you. Wanker Tanker, said, settler colonialism, Richie Torres. Apartheid asked Mandela and Desmond Tutu. Tutu said worse than apartheid. Oof. Oof. Well, Ella Shipley said, Professor's thoughts on the Trump administration wanted to make the West Bank into the Puerto Rico of Israel. I think Donald Trump's aspirations for the West Bank, or for that matter, Puerto Rico, are unwise and unprincipled. I think ultimately the people should make their own decisions. The people in those regions should make their own decisions. But Donald Trump doing something in Puerto Rico wouldn't make sense. And Donald Trump replicating what's been done in Puerto Rico in the West Bank, not just in terms of sites and kind of granular stuff. I'm talking about just the idea of making the West Bank move like a colony, or make the West Bank move like an American client said, or making the West Bank. It's interesting. And the idea of saying that he wants to make the West Bank the Puerto Rico of Israel. The West Bank's not in Israel. That Judean Samari thing is just another way for Israeli manifest destiny to be normalized and legitimized. So no, I don't want the West Bank to be the Puerto Rico of Israel. I want the West Bank to be the West Bank of the Jordan River. I want the West Bank to be part of a contiguous, consistent, powerful, well-supported Palestinian nation state. That's what I want, and I want it in my lifetime. All right, family, thank you all for watching Night School. Make sure you hit that like button. Maybe make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, make sure you hit that join button. Like button increases our social power. It lets the YouTube algorithms know that mainstream corporate media is not the only game in town. The like button helps with that. The subscribe button increases our social media footprint, which gives us more space and more reach to distribute the work that we do every day. And of course, if you're so inclined, hit that join button, family. If you're on a desktop, just hit join. If you're not, go into the comments and click the link. It'll take you to join. We ask that everybody make a contribution if they can and if they're so inclined. It would be amazing to get that kind of support, because as you all know, some of you, maybe you don't know, this is expensive. This is hard. We do this every single night, this show, and it's amazing. I love every minute of it. But please don't think that it doesn't come from the support of the people. Please don't think that it doesn't come from people making donations. And whether the donation is a bronze membership or a diamond membership, your monthly subscriptions, your monthly contributions do matter. So please consider hitting the meet button, the join button, and making that happen. But also, if you don't want to make a monthly commitment, you can make a one-time commitment. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle right now. Look at your resources and make a donation so that we can have the night school show every night, Monday to Friday at 9. Make sure you do it on Sunday so that we can have office hours or the Classroom in the Cell podcast with political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal on Sunday, or Coffee and Books on Saturday. We do this work because it matters. We do this work because we believe in it, but we also do this work because we want to build and expand community. So please go to one of these platforms, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, if you don't want to do a monthly subscription, and make a donation. If everybody gave $1, we'd be grateful. If every single person watching gave $1, we'd be so grateful. If everybody gave $1 million, we'd be building some amazing shit out here. But no one's going to give us $1 million. But anything in the middle, we love. Whether it's $1, $2, $2.05, whatever it is, we take it. But if everybody watching were to donate $10, if every single person who hears my voice right now and is watching this could do $10, we'd be able to meet all of our financial goals. I'm talking about paying staff, technology, the whole nine. We could do with $10. So if you have $10 you can spare, go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, and make a donation. What I consider the monthly tuition payment for being here on Night School, absolutely free. I want to thank you for watching tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. but also share the content, because we need people who are sharing the content after they study the content. And studying is what night school is all about. So we'll do it again tomorrow. I'll see you then.